Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Jays Center podcast presented by the Sick Podcast Network. This is the best time of the year, and the Jays have arguably the biggest series in recent memory coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Cole Weston and Rob Pentalmon here with you today to discuss all things Blue Jays. And we're going to touch on the state of the Blue Jays as of right now. You know, the offense, the rotation, the bullpen. But at the end of the show, and what you're going to want to stick around for, is we're going to preview everything you need to know about the Yankees series coming up, where the Jays head to New York with the division lead, only up 3.5 games at best. That's what they're up right now. It can change because the Yankees play tonight, but up 3.5 games roughly. So that means with a 3-game set, it couldn't get more massive than that. You got the Yankees in Yankee Stadium in September with the division up for grabs. So that is going to be at the end of the show, so stick around for that. To start, we're going to go with how good is this offense, man? The guys just absolutely shattered Cincinnati after losing Game 1. That's fine. But then they scored double-digit runs in Game 2 and Game 3 to secure the series win. This offense is on absolute fire, and I'm going to start with maybe the most encouraging stat of the second half, and forgive me if you disagree. Where do you think the Jays rank in second half home runs?
I believe I saw this. I think they're number 2. Is that correct? Number 2?
They probably are actually number 2 after last night. But when I checked, they were third. But they were only like 2 home runs behind the Phillies, and they were a bunch of home runs behind the Yankees. But the Yankees are frauds. They play in a sandbox. So really, they're top 2 in all of baseball in the second half in home runs. And that was the one thing of the first half that we thought they needed to improve on.
Absolutely. The home run ball, the equalizer, and it was the great equalizer for the Blue Jays in this, in this series in Cincy. Making that ballpark play like Coors Field, that's what it looked like. You just had to sort of flip it over there, and it would carry on over center field, over left field. We haven't played a lot in Cincinnati, but it felt like it was a pretty big bandbox out there. No, it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. Very electric, coming back from a 5-0 deficit to salvage what would have really been a really disappointing series loss to the Reds, which looked like we were on pace to do that yesterday. You know, Shane Bieber, I thought overall had a good start, but ultimately got knocked around a bit in that second inning. And all of a sudden, you're down 5-0. 5-0, I don't care who you're down against. You're going to sweat, right? Unless you're playing the Rockies. Maybe then you'll take it a little bit easier. But it looked like we were headed for a series loss. Fortunately, the Blue Jays were able to get the bats out and sort of color over what was a very questionable pitching series, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But right now, onto the positives. Love to see everyone get involved. Obviously, George Springer is insane. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Addison Barger both getting back on the horse. Both had been scuffling a bit the last few weeks. And Dalton Varsho, who hits a home run every game. Alejandro Kirk solidifying his place in the hierarchy in terms of major league catchers. It was a lot of fun. It is a much-needed series win. And all of a sudden now, the Blue Jays got a little help from the baseball gods on the out-of-town scoreboard. They put themselves in a very good position, obviously heading into the Bronx, which we'll touch on later. But obviously, offense is on fire, third in all of baseball in OPS. Now, with the stat that you just mentioned, second in home runs, it's looking pretty good, Prof. How are you feeling about the state of the club right now?
I never thought I was going to get here. Not at a single moment, even during our run in the first half, did I think we were going to get to a point where I was this confident in this offense. And you singled out some names, and I'm going to ring
scary,
them
man.
They're scary.
Yesterday it just felt scary when they were coming up to the plate. I'm like, this should be a multi-run inning every time you step up to the plate.
And this is perfect because you need guys that are going to scare the other team in the postseason, and we might have 5. And that is unbelievable to say. If George Springer, Bo Bichette, Dalton Varsho, Alejandro Kirk, or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. come up to the dish in October, barring any October stats continuing to be what they are, that other pitcher has to be scared. And before we even got into this year, we wouldn't have said that two of those guys were scary. Dalton Varsho was not known for being this prolific with the power. Vladdy, as we know, has had rough Octobers in previous years. Bo Bichette was coming off his literal career worst year. George Springer was coming off his literal career worst year. And Alejandro Kirk, we thought, was moving to a defense-first catcher. So the fact that all five of those guys are now legitimate, actual damage threats is unbelievable. And it doesn't stop there. Like, Andres Jimenez will run into the odd home run. Ernie Clement, Nathan Lucas, Miles Straw, Tyler Heineman. Like, the list goes on, and that's assuming we don't get Anthony Santander back, or assuming he's not going to be at his actual, career normals. Like, this offense is the number one strength of this team, and it was the number one weakness going into the year. Rob also mentioned we were top 3 in OPS. We are also top 3 in WRC plus, and I know a lot of people who care about advanced analytics care about WRC plus more than they care about OPS plus, and the Jays are great in both categories. So in case you're unfamiliar with the two stats, OPS plus is ballpark factored and offense environment factored. WRC plus is actually how productive have you been at creating runs and how valuable have those runs been. So you want to lead in both categories, and the Jays do lead in both categories. So the under the hood numbers actually match the raw stats, which is the Jays, I think, lead the league in average, lead the league in OBP, are up there in slugging, up there in OPS. So the advanced analytics match the raw analytics. Rob, are you back? We got you.
You got me. There we go. We go.
Yes.
Just like the Jays yesterday, we thought they were out of it, but they come right back, ready, hot, and ready to go. I was talking about the offense. My main point was that the offense had turned the page really ever since the middle of May, right? Because ever since the middle of May, we had already identified and determined that it looked like their offensive profile was going to be so much better than we expected coming in. Coming in, we were sort of thought, okay, the pathway is can you score just enough and maybe have some bounce back years on the pitching side of things. But even in May, you look at the offense, it was still like near the top of the league in terms of WRC plus. I mean, obviously the home run threat wasn't there. But obviously now it's sort of flipped. You mentioned since the All-Star break. Now all of a sudden this team is hitting bombs. From a plate efficiency perspective, they're number one. They're number one in on-base percentage. Obviously, I think they're number 4 in slugging now. This is an elite lineup. We're seeing an elite lineup. Obviously, 2021 was so prolific that I'm not sure.
The light wasn't on, so I was trying to turn it on.
Apologize to all the listeners. 2021 obviously was just an absolute power show. All in all, you had so many guys who hit. I think you had 4 30 home run hitters that year. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure Bo ended up getting there near the end, but regardless, all of a sudden now you have plenty of guys who are going to get into the 20s. Addison Barger's at 19, Bo Bichette's at 18, Dalton Varsho's at 18. Obviously, we all know about Vlad and Springer. They're going to finish with 520-plus home run hitters. George Springer's going to get to 30. Vlad's going to hit 25-plus. All of a sudden, the home run threat that we all wanted, that we all thought this team kind of missed, they're right there. They're right there when they're peaking at the right time. Obviously, this George Springer thing, he started off, and I mentioned the last show with Blake, that he was on a really nice season, and then we thought, okay, this is great, really nice story, to all of a sudden it's turned into, outside of Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge, and Shohei Ohtani, he's right there with all the best hitters in all of baseball. Obviously Vlad this season he's having, I know he's cooled off a bit. I think that's more injury related, but however, yesterday was a good sign. 3 missiles. Bo Bichette, obviously he's on a tear. He was outstanding in the month of August. Alejandro Kirk, slow and steady. Dalton Varsho's hitting bombs. The lineup depth is still there. I mean, even though the Nathan Lucases have kind of cooled off a bit, but they're still out there giving competitive at bats. Andres Jimenez, I think if you're facing a lefty, if you're facing a righty, you feel okay about him hitting 9th in your order. Yep. This is a very deep lineup all of a sudden who has the home run threat. And obviously they're 10th in home runs. They're not elite at that overall, but you mentioned they've been elite since the All-Star break. And right now, we got to really soak this in, man, because we saw in 2021 how rare it is to have an offense that special. Exactly. And we never thought we would have it this year. And all of a sudden we do. We're right here in the mix of it. And remember in 2023 when we talked about how this is an imperfect team, but yet if they were somehow sort of to flip it, if they could have an elite offense and sort of a questionable pitching staff, it
Yeah.
would be a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it right now. That's
Yep.
kind of what it is. We're seeing
Yep.
a really elite lineup and a middle of the pack pitching staff. And yeah, it's definitely a lot more fun than the years past. It feels more real. The damage is there. I'm really
Exactly.
excited.
Exactly. I said at the beginning of the year, and this was, I would say, one of my, quasi bold predictions. While I didn't think the offense was going to live up to a playoff caliber team, I did tell everybody that you've complained about pitching and defense the last 3 years. So if this team starts hitting home runs, which I said they were going to do, they were going to finish middle of the pack or above in home runs, then you have to get on the bandwagon and enjoy it. And fair enough to Toronto, they did. Ever since the All-Star break, it's been sold out every single night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously the team is really good. I mean, here's another thing about the 2023 team is that that team was good, but it wasn't this good. They were never in a position where you actually had a chance to win the AL East or even have the number one seed in the American League a bye. Like that team, the hope was, can they find a way to sneak into the wild card and be a road wild card team? That was sort of their fate. It was determined like in September because of how underwhelming of a season it actually was. Even though the team, we learned last year that we would rather have that team than the team we had last year. But nevertheless, I was gonna cut you off and say that yes, you'd like to have the awesome offense and the mediocre pitching staff. That you'd rather have that than the vice versa. However, and this is a good segue. Oh God, what happened, Mike?
Now your camera's gone.
This is a mess. Anyways, that being said, I would like this pitching staff to be a little bit more than what we've seen lately. I think I'm a little bit concerned about that in terms of projecting this team forward. It's fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. This brand of baseball is fun to watch, but it would be nice if you had a little bit more confidence in this pitching staff, and I think that's a good segue.
Yeah, it is a good segue. I'm going to finish off one more offensive stat that I find absolutely boggling. And Jimmy, I do think you need to, timestamp this and clip it because it's an unbelievable stat. So we mentioned how great of a year Alejandro Kirk is having. Also, credit to Ross Atkins and Mark Schreiber for getting that contract done before the year because that would have looked a lot different after this year.
It might have doubled. I'm not even joking. It might have doubled.
It might have doubled.
Get that done again. Yes.
Exactly. So Alejandro Kirk is top 15 in all of baseball in batting average with like 296 or something. That was the last time I checked, which was like a couple days ago. With 2 strikes, his average actually gets better. His batting average with 2 strikes is 306. And guess who also has a batting average right around that number? Bo Bichette, which would rank top 5 in all of baseball. Alejandro Kirk with 2 strikes. His batting average would rank top 5 in all of baseball in terms of batting average. That is an absolutely bonkers stat. Like, to the point where you almost just tell him, don't swing until 2 strikes. Like, that is the level of absurdness it is because he's in first. Luis Arias is like 20 points or 30 points behind him in second. And then the guy next after that is like 40 points behind him in third place. So Alejandro Kirk with 2 strikes is having a historic year. So I wanted to get that out there before we moved on to the pitching.
Don't swing until there's 2 strikes. That seems to be the plan when hitting coaches relate to their hitters when Brendan Little's on the mound.
Yes, when Brendan Little's on the mound as well. Yes, Alejandro Kirk would feast off of Brendan Little. He would have like a 700 OPP. Okay, speaking of pitchers and speaking of Brendan Little, we're going to go. We'll start with the rotation, but we will get to Brandon Little because he's also had some problems over the last couple of days.
Yep.
So the starting rotation, as we know, last time we were on this show, I said ranked 20th in ERA, and they are still, if they're worse than what they were when I had that show with Blake. So because it has not gotten better at all since then. Chris Bassett, thankfully, has had 2 good road starts, but everybody else has not. Jose Barrios continues to look like someone who has to be off the playoff roster. And like Rob mentioned off the start of the show, Shane Bieber gave up 5 runs in the second inning against Cincinnati. I do agree with Rob, though. Outside of that, he gave up no runs. But obviously, you can't give up a 5 spot and call it a good start. So he had a rough one in Cincinnati. And it's just continued. And Max
Max
Scherzer,
Scherzer was rough.
had his worst start in the last 6 outings. His worst one came in his most recent one. So Kevin Gausman is kind of stayed level, but point
He's actually been
is,
good. He's been
yeah,
good.
he's
He's gone
actually
up
been
the rank.
good. Yeah. Point is, and Rob will probably give you a stat that actually puts this into context. Nobody, nobody gets barreled like the Toronto Blue Jays starting pitchers.
Yep. Yep. I'll actually give it to you right now, actually. And I know stats can be a little confusing, so please bear with me. I know last thing you want to do is be throwing a lot of numbers, but ultimately, we'll talk about one number, barrel rate on Baseball Savant. For those of you who don't know, a barrel is when a hitter hits the ball at an optimal exit velocity, also at an optimal launch angle, which oftentimes you could obviously put it together. Optimal launch angle, optimal velocity, it's probably going to end up in the seats more often than not,
More
right?
often than not, yep.
So we can all agree that the worst you can do, all we talked about, hitters. Home run ball's the equalizer. The best thing you can do at the plate is hit a home run. The opposite is true for a pitcher. The worst thing you can do is give up a barrel, right? So that's obviously the most concerning stat. We'll look at the barrel rates. So 50th percentile is league average. Anything lower than 50th is below league average. Chris Bassett, 43rd percentile in barrel rate. Kevin Gausman, 39th percentile in barrel rate.
Wow. So despite the fact that he's had a pretty good year, he gets barreled a lot.
He gets barreled a lot. Shane Bieber, only 18 innings. I think it's just under 18 innings, not qualified yet, although his barrel rate through 18 innings has not been pretty. However, what's offset that is the fact that he's gotten a lot of chase, a lot of swing and miss, and he's not walk guys, so that's obviously helpful.
Yeah.
Max
So
Scherzer.
we should also, because I think that will confuse people right there. Barrel rate is 4 balls that are put in play.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not every at bat counts. It's every at bat that finishes with a ball in play that counts.
Correct, yes. Max Scherzer, 4th percentile in barrel rate. That is near the bottom of the league. That is near the bottom of the league. He doesn't get any ground balls. He's first percentile in ground balls, below average in both swing and miss and chase. And that's the thing about Max Scherzer. And I know I'm kind of the victim of this because I was the one who, a couple episodes ago, I
Yeah,
said
said
he's
he was
my
your game
number
one
one.
starter. Yeah,
He's my number one game one starters. Might be a little hyperbole. When taking a deeper look, and we'll talk about this later, Max Scherzer has had a very fine season for a 41-year-old,
Yeah.
for a guy who we thought we were getting nothing out of. And that obviously the fact that he is an all-time legend pitching for your favorite team, that's obviously very cool. All that's true. But him headlining a postseason rotation, yeah, like that's not a thing anymore, right? I think that, and also I think the biggest reason why I might have put him there is that I almost sort of ignored the overall numbers more so than just this is a guy who's been there and done that before, and
Right.
like we really have no one else in our rotation that has the track record of going out there and dominating in the playoffs. Shane Bieber has been pretty
Right.
good actually,
Except for Shane Bieber. Yeah.
but I think that's a big reason why I wanted to give him the nod over say a Chris Bassett. But yes, the numbers have been concerning, and he was not good at all in his last start against Milwaukee. But the guy I really want to talk about is Jose Barrios, who
Huh.
not much better than Max Scherzer. He's 8th percentile in barrel rates, and Shane, pardon me, I'll compare it to Shane Bieber in a bit. Jose Barrios, bar none, plain and simply, has not had a good season. Let's go out there right now and just put it out there. He's had a very poor season. If you look at the Baseball Savant page versus this season versus 2022, which is the bad Jose Barrios season, the quote unquote outlier season,
Right.
they are very similar. It's not quite as bad as that year, but the overall numbers and the percentiles, it's a marginal improvement from what we've seen that year, which obviously was very bad. He had the lowest WAR amongst any qualified starter in the major leagues that year, the highest ERA too.
Yeah, we didn't
He's a
know.
guy.
The conversation after that year was we didn't know if he was going to still be in the rotation anymore.
Yes, correct. And this last start in Cincinnati, 2 innings, 7 hard hit balls. You want to know how all this conversation, and you guys, I'm sure, have heard a lot. The bullpen is gassed. The bullpen is gassed. The bullpen's overused. How does the bullpen get overused? That game is a perfect example of how a bullpen gets overused. 8 runs in the first 2 innings by your offense. You're up 8-1. All you have to do if you're Jose Barrios is just sort of keep it in the zone. Don't get crushed. Just give them 6 innings. If you give four or 5 runs, that's fine. We have the lead for a reason. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't even get you. Well, he got you through 2 innings. 66 pitches. He got 2 swings and misses. So no one's confused. Everyone's hitting the ball hard. And the Blue Jays, since our last podcast, announced that they're going to a 5-man rotation, basically meaning Eric Lauer, who pitched that game, he's now the long man in the rotation. And I'm a little annoyed because if we're being honest, it's based on meritocracy. Jose Barrios should have been the guy to lead the rotation. If we're being honest with ourselves, because he's right now he's not giving you much of a chance to win. I know that the Jays have a good record in his games, but he's not pitching well at all. The 4.02 ERA that you see, the raw numbers, it's completely a fallacy. His expected ERA is a lot closer to 5. He has an ERA over 5.50 in like the last month or so, something like that. And yeah, I honestly do think that it's not going to happen, but if it were up to me, he's scheduled to start Tuesday in Houston, or pardon me, against Houston in Toronto. If that start goes similar to how this last start went, I'm having a serious conversation of a phantom IL, and I'll see you in spring next year. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. He's obviously had his fingerprints all over the success of this team the last few years. He's obviously been very good the last few years. He projects to be good next year. I mean, he's only 30 years old. He's not old. He's not washed up. You'd hope not at that age. So you still hope that he's going to come back and have a good year. But right now, it's not working. Right now, I'm doing it right now. I'm writing off Jose Barrios for the rest of the year. Not only he should not be starting a playoff game, he shouldn't be in your playoff rotation. We talked about with Blake. This is not a guy who throws hard, who's going to be a matchup nightmare out of the pen. He's a guy who gets barreled a ton and doesn't throw very hard. He's a mix and match, paint the edges type of guy, and it's not been painting lately. I want to know your thoughts, but ultimately, yeah, I'm out on Jose Barrios, unfortunately, at least for the rest of this season.
So am I. And I had him as my Game 4 starter, I think, in the last podcast, if not the podcast before that. He was my Game 4 starter, and I was kind of ignoring the underlying numbers. The underlying numbers have been this all season long. This has been what his trajectory was going to be, and we brought it up on multiple podcasts. Unfortunately, it's gotten there. The raw numbers have now caught up to catching up to the underlying metrics. So he cannot be on your playoff rotation, which leaves you in a very tough spot. Because as I mentioned, and the whole reason why I had him as my Game 4 starter is because Game 4, if you have home field advantage, is on the road. And unless Chris Bassitt finishes out this regular season with having consecutive good road starts, which he's on 2 right now, he has 2 good road starts. If he continues that trend the rest of the way, I am scared shitless for Chris Bassitt on the road in a playoff game. I'm scared shitless because Chris Bassitt's getting a road playoff-esque game this Sunday against New York in a sandbox. I'm scared shitless for that game. Every Chris Bassitt road start to me is a scheduled loss. So I am scared shitless because now I don't know what you do. I don't know how you avoid that because as Rob and I discussed the last time I think Rob and I did, ironically enough, a 2-person podcast, Chris Bassitt can't start a home game because you can't have him take a start away from your top 3 guys, which maybe Max Scherzer falls back to earth and Max Scherzer
Here's the thing.
and Chris Bassitt are comparable. But even then, Game 3 is also a road game. That's the thing. No matter what, Game 3, Game 4, it's a road game. So unless you're going to bump Shane Bieber or Kevin Gausman for Chris Bassitt, he can't start a home game, which means now I'm back to the Eric Lauer thing. But Eric Lauer, in his last outing against Minnesota, a very triple A.
Eric Lauer's done too.
Eric Lauer's probably done. And I said that all year. I said that. Yep. It has been a what's the word I'm looking for? Product of favorable circumstances, I guess there's a saying. Yeah, I don't know the saying, but
that's me right now too as well. Yeah.
Right, but that is what I'm trying to say. A product of favorable circumstances, and I mentioned to prove it what his 3rd time through the order stats were on the last pod, and that was before the Minnesota game. It's a 900 OPS against, and it's definitely more than that now since that Minnesota game. So it cannot happen. You cannot start him in a playoff game. You can have him be a long man. I'm more than happy with that. So it leaves you in a very tough spot in a 5-game set or in a 7-game set, unless of course you sweep the 5-game and then you have to figure it out in the 7-game series.
Here's the thing about Eric Lauer is that I do think that there was a path to potentially him being your guy. The problem is that I think that the maneuvering that you've done the last few weeks has sort of eliminated that to me, in my opinion, because like for example, let's say had they just phantom IL'd Jose Barrios and had Eric Lauer be their starter, I think that maybe you could have talked yourself into it. But I think you skipped his start, and obviously that completely threw him off. His next start against Minnesota, he was still in the rotation, quote unquote, but obviously when you skipped the start, it was a signal to everybody that he's the odd man out, and ended up being the odd man out. But to me, I think you go into that Minnesota start, and there are 2 things at play there. One, obviously, is the long layoff, which completely throws any pitcher off. But
Yeah.
number two is that all of a sudden Eric Lauer's like, well, if I have any chance at remaining in this rotation, I have to be perfect. And obviously he was far from it. And
Yeah.
now he's moved to the bullpen. He got lit up by the Reds too. He got hit around pretty hard as well
Yep.
in the same start Barrios did. And now
Yep.
all of a sudden, now he's completely thrown apart. You completely mess up his routine. Like to me at this point, as good as Eric Lauer has been, I would be shocked if he's anything more than just your prototypical long man.
Yep.
Maybe he's your situational lefty because that position has been so bad lately, and we'll talk about that shortly
Right.
when we preview the Yankees series because they have a lot of lefties and the Blue Jays have no lefties you trust right now, so that's going to be fun. But other than that, I don't see Eric Lauer being a starter that's going to make an impact moving forward. I mean, I think you missed the boat on that when you didn't want to make the Barrios decision, and unfortunately, now you have two holes. You know, you have two guys who you were hoping to fill that hole, and it's not been the case. I do want to talk about the Max Scherzer and Chris Bassett of it all because when taking a deeper look, the conversation around these two guys has been so completely different. Of Max Scherzer is a guy that you want to start, and again, hands up, I've been a victim of this. I'm a perpetrator of this, I should say. Um, I said that I want him starting early in my playoff rotation, and I don't want Chris Bassett touching a playoff mound. I've said that all season long. Their seasons are very comparable, and not only are they very comparable, you could actually make a pretty decent argument that Chris Bassett has actually been better slightly than Max Scherzer this year. We're not going to talk about the fact that Max Scherzer missed the first half of the year, and that Chris Bassett has been pitching and obviously has a lot more tread on the tires and has been making every start. That obviously has value in its own right. But if you look at just the efficiency metrics, Chris Bassett, higher exit velo, meaning that it's better than Max Scherzer's. He's got a lower barrel rate, a much lower barrel rate than Max Scherzer. We touched on that earlier. Similar whiff rates. So in terms of swing and miss stuff, like it's very similar. Chris Bassett actually has a higher case per nine, I believe. His expected ERA is lower than Max Scherzer's has been. And the ground ball rate obviously is much lower because obviously Max Scherzer doesn't get any ground balls. He's a completely fly ball pitcher at this point. And obviously Chris Bassett, the weird thing about this is that as bad as he's been on the road, his home numbers are excellent.
Yeah, no,
they legitimately are excellent.
His home numbers are Cy Young. Like, it's simple as that.
I mean, and obviously that makes sense because if you're the worst starter in history on the road, to have a competent season, you have to obviously be the other extreme at home. So I don't know. I mean, obviously right now, if you were to ask me, I would still put Max Scherzer atop of Chris Bassett in my playoff hierarchy right now. But it's close, and a few more good Chris Bassett starts, a few more rough Max Scherzer starts, and yeah, I might be sold.
So here's the thing. In August, you couldn't do this Jose Barrios thing where you put him on the Phantom IL and have Eric Lauer in the rotation because you needed a long man in the rotation. But with the extra roster spots and with Brandon Fisher and Mason Fluharty in the next week or so eventually coming back up to the big leagues, you can do this Phantom IL thing, so I do think that's a good idea. And not that I, again, have confidence in Eric Lauer, but I just want to see if there's anything we can get out of Jose Barrios. Because I still think there's an above zero. I know, but I still think there's an above 0% chance that, let's say, after Houston, which is September 9th, right? That would be the start. Yes. So you 10-day IL him after that. So that would, let's say, go to September 21st. He can probably make one more start before the playoffs. And I am saying that if all of this happens and he is competent or above average in that one start before the playoffs, I do think that there's still a well above 0% chance that the Jays will have him on the playoff roster. I'm not saying that that is the correct decision. I'm just saying that that is, I think, my expected result. My point is that it's a good time. It's a good time. It's a good time to Phantom IL him. That's what I'm more saying.
So to me, I view the Phantom IL. One, I don't think it's going to happen because obviously, like I do think that he is going to want to pitch, and I think the reason why they didn't Phantom IL him already and have Eric Lauer start is because they're scared to hurt his confidence. I mean, that's the only reason why. Like, there's no argument for him to pitch over Eric Lauer aside from the fact that he's making a lot more money and that he's going to be here next year in a starter's role guarantee. You don't want to shatter his confidence, which I get. I think that's valid. I think that's valid when you're managing a team of people and. You want to show confidence in your guy. You paid him a lot of money, and he's had good seasons. So I understand why they haven't done it. But to me, if you're going to do it, there is no Phantom IL come back and have a good start, be in the playoff run. To me, Phantom IL is over. Like there is no that is the last option.
I'm aware that that's what you were saying. Yeah, no, I know.
That is the write-off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that. Obviously, that's your opinion. Like this isn't a guarantee.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee, but
Right.
I do think if you're gonna that's such a nuclear option where to me, if you're going to shatter a guy's confidence to that degree of like let's fake an injury so you don't have to pitch, then you can't reasonably expect him to come back and pitch a playoff game for you. Like to me, like that at that point it wouldn't even be on him. Like I think any person, if they were told to just go home and we don't want you here and then come back and perform, like that's just not realistic. That's just not how it would obviously bring renewed respect to Jose Barrios if you could do that, but like that I'm not you can't expect that to happen. You can't expect to send a guy home and bring him back and expect to pitch great in the biggest game. Yeah, no, I don't even know where we were at, but I think the
No,
whole
no, no.
theme
I
of where we are is that we're concerned about this rotation. But
yeah.
thank God we got a great bullpen, right, Prof? Thank God we got a bullpen back on that we love.
Yeah. My final thing on the rotation is that if Chris Bassett's one of your 4 playoff starters, which, as we discussed, he kind of has to be,
Yeah.
then in this 5-minute stretch, I've come to the conclusion he has to start game 2, and it's as simple as that. Which means because you can still get Kevin Gausman game 3, which means Kevin Gausman is still guaranteed to start. And past Kevin Gausman, you're not confident, like you're not losing out on a start from one of your best guys, in your opinion. You got your best guy at home. You got Shane Bieber and you got Kevin Gausman. So I think I actually do think that's the right move. Before, when we had options, I did not like that move. But now that we don't have options, Chris Bassett has to start game 2 at home.
And here's the thing. One more thing before we move to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Kevin Gausman, we sort of just threw out his barrel percentage, which is not good, 39%. Kevin Gausman has been very good this season. He's been very good in the second half. Earlier in the year, where we sort of thought he was sort of having a high floor, not quite a great season, which was kind of true. His ERA was up around 4, but and the strikeouts weren't very impressive. Since the All-Star break, he's been very, very good. I was at his last start when they faced the Brewers. He was awesome that game. It was one of the best starts we've seen from a Blue Jays pitcher all year, especially against a lineup that great. I think he had 8 strikeouts, 7 innings, gave up just 1 run, and it was like an RBI ground out. I think he had like 4 hits the whole game.
Yeah, for a team that doesn't strike out too.
Yeah, and then the pitching run value for Kevin Gausman is really good. I don't have it in front of me. Like aside from the barrel rate, which obviously, like I mentioned, is very important, everything looks pretty good for Kevin Gausman. I mean, he's a guy that obviously he was always going to start a playoff game for you. To me, at this point, like he's obviously a guarantee, and you feel pretty confident in him starting a playoff game. So I just wanted to give little flowers to Kevin Gausman. We've been very negative about the rotation. He deserves some credit because that was a very good start, and he's had a very good second half.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that leads us into a bullpen that has been just an absolute disaster class, and I say that on purpose as you see the lower third pop up. Plain and simple, it's untrustable at this current moment. Not only is it untrustable, you are scared out of your goddamn pants come October because your rotation's not going to get you through 6 innings, which means you're going to need at least 4 innings out of your bullpen. And we can't find it as of right now. It doesn't feel like we can get 1 inning of just clean baseball from anybody in the pen. Louis will have a good outing, then he'll give up a home run. Gallo Rodriguez will have a good outing, then he'll give up multiple runs. Brandon Little can't have a clean outing, period. Jeff Hoffman, as you know, is just an absolute roller coaster who, to his credit, has gotten the last 2 appearances. He got the job done in his last 2 appearances. So credit to Jeff Hoffman. But that's all that Jeff Hoffman's been this year. Has been gets a few good ones and then will blow you a game that you're supposed to win. So it literally is the worst part of this team, and it was built and valued and sought after at the trade deadline to build a playoff bullpen, and we have the names. We do not have the results.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this kind of is what the volatility of the Major League bullpen is. Like I mentioned in our last podcast, every reliever is some degree a flawed pitcher, right? Because if they could start, they would start. Look at the earnings potential of being a starting pitcher. You could be a guy with an ERA in the mid-4s and get much more money than an elite reliever. That's just the reality of it. The starting pitching is so highly valued that if you're a reliever, that means at some point in your career, something went wrong where you have to resort to that as your new career trajectory, right? Jeff Hoffman is the perfect example because Jeff Hoffman was drafted by the Blue Jays, and the hopes was that he was going to be some ace pitcher. When the Jays traded him, that was sort of the discourse. They traded their number one pitching prospect. He went to Colorado in the Tulowitzki trade and failed as a starter, and then became a very good reliever for the Phillies, which got him the contract to come back to the Blue Jays. But this wasn't the plan. This wasn't the plan when the Jays drafted Jeff Hoffman. This wasn't the plan when the Colorado Rockies traded for Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah,
Louis Varland is another good example. Yes, like no one is drafted to be a reliever, because why waste a draft pick on a reliever when you can sign one to a pretty cheap 1-year deal and get good results for you, right? Everyone wants to be a starter. So I guess my whole point in this whole paradigm here is that major league relievers are going to be volatile, and the Jays relievers had a very bad month ever since the trade deadline. That being said, you mentioned the projections suggest that they should be pretty good. Louis Varland is really unfortunate because he had 2 really good outings prior to yesterday, and yesterday was just obviously back to square one. It felt like a disaster of him getting hit hard, and for some reason his 100-mile-per-hour fastball doesn't play at 100 at all. Like, he's off-speed stuff, doesn't get any swing and miss, unfortunately. Sir Anthony Dominguez gave up a home run the night before, which unfortunately that's what it is with Sir Anthony Dominguez. He gets hit hard by lefties. That's always been his bugaboo. And obviously Jeff Hoffman, who was good his last 2 starts. These are all guys who throw hard. These are all guys who have had a lot of success at the back end of bullpens for good teams this season in particular. They've all had their moments. Yariel Rodriguez, another good example. He's a guy whose velo had been way down, and I thought that was a byproduct of being overworked. He was touching 97 Monday in Cincinnati, which is obviously a very good sign. And the whole point is that, in a sense, you should feel good about this bullpen.
Yeah.
And I know the results have been terrible, but to me, it's sort of like Vlad in 2023, where like the results are not good. Under the hood numbers, everything looks fine, and yet tomorrow you're going to pencil him in third in your lineup because there's no one better, and you should have confidence despite the fact that the results have been what they are. And to me, this is a long-winded way of saying that as bad as the bullpen has been, would I be surprised if they turn it around and pitched to their caliber? No, because these are good pitchers. This is not the 2021 Anthony Castro, Rafael Dolis, who else was it? Tyler Chatwood bullpen. These are legitimate
Tim
guys
Meza.
these are legitimate guys who have great readings, who project really well, who stuff grades as high leverage relievers. And yeah, it's not been pretty. And right now, do I have confidence when anyone comes into the game? No, because the recent sample is not good. But every time one of these guys comes into the game and they put up a 0, I'm like, yeah, this is what it should look like.
Yeah.
It does, like when you get a good outing out of them, it's not as if you got lightning in the bottle. Like, this is what should happen, right?
Yeah.
So, as crazy as it sounds, I actually don't think that the bullpen is the most concerning facet of the team moving forward.
I was just gonna ask you, what is going to cost this team a playoff series if we do get knocked out?
I think the rotation is far likelier to cost them a playoff series. I think the rotation is sort of like they don't project well. They project as guys who get hit a ton, and the home run ball matters in the playoffs. We talked about that all season long, and no one is more susceptible to giving up home runs in this rotation. The bullpen, on the other hand, actually has pretty good underlying numbers. And I actually do think that a big reason why the bullpen has struggled is because of the rotation in the first place all season long and not being able to blow teams out. That was more so the offense rather than them. But Jose Barrios, how many times have we seen him do this? Remember the Yankees start when the Jays scored 8 runs in the first inning or something like that, and he ended up getting blown his doors off, and the pen had to pitch a ton of innings. Like, that, a big reason why they are where they are is because the rotation has not done their job for the most part all year long. So yeah, it's not great. It hasn't been great, but I have more confidence in this bullpen than I do in the rotation moving forward, if I'm being honest with you.
That's interesting, and I fully agree. And that's been the opposite of what's happened every playoff exit in the Vladdy Bo era so far. It's been the offense that has caused us to exit. We've scored.
No, the Seattle era, the bullpen cost them. They had a 4-run lead, like the 8th inning, I believe it was, and they blew it. So I think you could point that in the bullpen.
That was after you got shoved in game 1 by Luis Castillo, though.
Yes, absolutely, yes, you did in game 1. But that game 2 specifically, you have a good bullpen, you win that game, and who knows what happens in game 3. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, now for the good stuff. The biggest series in recent memory. The Jays take on the Yankees for 3 games in the Bronx this weekend. The Jays are currently, before the Yankees finish off the series against the Astros tonight, they are 3.5 games up on the Yankees. After tonight, they will either be 3 or 4 games up. Meaning, no matter what, you will still have the division lead at the end of the weekend because you do have the tiebreaker over the New York Yankees. So, we're feeling pretty good, obviously. I will give you the pitching matchups before Rob gets into it. Game 1, Kevin Gausman versus Cam Schlittler. Schlittler, okay.
Schlittler.
Max Scherzer versus Luis Hill, and Chris Bassett versus Max Fried. And if you're wondering how the Jays have done against those 3 pitchers, you can just go to their most recent starts against the Toronto Blue Jays, and it's good against all 3 of them. Max Fried we've beaten twice this year. Luis Hill hasn't pitched against us this year because he's been injured, but last year we got to him. And then Shillito, whatever his name is, Cam, we got to him earlier this year as well.
Yeah. I want to go into a different direction because this whole podcast has been negative. It's basically telling you reasons why you shouldn't believe in this Blue Jays team to make a run in October. And like I do think that the reasons we stated were all very valid. They're also very granular and specific to the Toronto Blue Jays. Here is one thing that hasn't, I mean, we've touched on it, but hasn't really been, I guess, espoused is that as mediocre as this stretch has been for the Blue Jays, they're 18-17 in their last 35 games. That's basically a 500 team since the end of July.
Yep.
As bad as that's been, they're in the same position they were at that time. They're still the number 1 seed in the American League. They are still multiple games up on the AL East. I think they were 6 games up. Now they're 3.5 games up. So they've only lost a couple games despite playing a very mediocre brand of baseball. And that's to underscore that as questionable as the Blue Jays are, we talked about this last week with Blake, there is really no one that's banging down the door ready to overtake them. No one has really taken advantage of the Blue Jays' slippage to that degree. I mean, they've closed the gap, the Yankees and the Red Sox have, but Jays are still sitting here in a good position, and that's why you should feel confident. On paper, I'll be honest, I think the Yankees actually project to be a better team than the Blue Jays. I think that you look at their rotation, the Blue Jays don't have a single guy who's above league average in terms of barrel rate. The Yankees have 3 guys, and that's not including Luis Hill, who's obviously good and who's unqualified. So that's a rotation that projects better. Yes, right? So that's obviously a rotation that projects better. Their offense, we talked about the Blue Jays offense being number 2 in WRC plus in all of baseball. Well, they're number 1. Pardon me, they're behind the Yankees, number 1, and the Yankees are number 1 by quite a substantial difference. You know, they're an elite offense. They hit the most home runs. They have the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah,
and even the
like,
bullpen.
And like for all the people that shit on Aaron Judge in October, like they went to the World Series. They went to the World Series last year.
Yeah. So that's my point is that I do think that the Yankees are actually a better team than the Blue Jays are, but my point is that it doesn't matter because here's the thing: the reason, the part of the season where it mattered, who's better than who, is the long 5.5 month stretch where one team, the team who's better, should have a substantially better record than the other one, right? And that hasn't happened. The Yankees have not taken advantage. They have been the Blue Jays of the years past, looking great on paper and not taking advantage.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays, on the other hand, have. They've overperformed their projections, and that's why they're in this position. There's 22 games left in the season. The Blue Jays don't have to be better than the Yankees. They just have to be at least 3 games worse. They are more than capable of doing that. It starts this weekend in the Bronx. Obviously, the Blue Jays have had a good record against the Yankees all season long. Is it out of the question that they win 2 out of 3 and pretty much bury the Yankees, dare I say? Absolutely not. And even if they don't, even if, for example, let's say the Yankees lose tonight and the Jays just win 1 out of 3, that's still a 3-game lead with like 19 games left, which the Blue Jays have multiple games at home. The Yankees, they end the season pretty easy schedule-wise, but they also play the Tigers, who are right up there with the Blue Jays for the number 1 record. Then they play the Red Sox. They go to Fenway. Obviously, a tough place to play against a good Red Sox team. My point is it doesn't matter that the Yankees or the Red Sox might be better. The Blue Jays are in the best position of all 3. They are still the favorites to win the AL East. And that being said, you have a chance this weekend series to pretty much, I don't want to say bury the Yankees, but if you win 2 out of 3 and the Yankees lose tonight, 5-game lead with 17 games left or whatever it is, I know I'm playing ahead of myself. That's a very big gap with that little time left. And this is a tremendous opportunity for the Blue Jays to continue what's been a magical season.
Yeah, and I think I'll just reiterate the fact that the Jays hold the tiebreaker. That just means that up to this point, we already were so much better than them this year that it doesn't matter what happens this weekend. Like, that is how much better the Jays have been than the Yankees this year. And every time we've played the Yankees, we've kicked the shit out of them. I have not been worried about this Yankee series coming up. As you know, Rob, from the group chats that we're in, I haven't been worried about this Yankee series, period, for 2 weeks. And everybody was worried about this Yankee series coming up. Like, oh, the Yankees are trending upward. And then they absolutely shit down their leg yesterday against the Houston Astros.
That
And
was
that's,
beautiful to watch.
yeah,
That was
beautiful,
beautiful to watch.
beautiful to watch. And that's what they
Here's the
do.
thing.
That's what they
Here's
do in
the
the biggest
thing.
moments.
Devin Williams. I hate to pile on the poor guy because God knows he's already getting a lot of that from the Yankees faithful, the great Yankees faithful who throw stuff and talks trash to players and threatens their families and all that. The great Yankees fan base that we all love. He is, like, dare I say, the sole reason why the Blue Jays have a comfortable lead in the AL East. Like, he is the sole reason why. And yes, the bullpen has been bad. You know, even the trades that they made, you know, Camilo Doval, Jake Bird, and David Bednar has been good, but the other two guys have been a disaster. Is Jake Bird even back up? Didn't he get
I
sent
don't
down
think
to
so.
AAA?
Yeah, he got
I'm not
sent down
sure.
there. Yeah.
I'm not even sure he's gotten back up yet. So it goes to show, like, one, it goes to show my point earlier about how volatile bullpens are. But yes, Devin Williams, that acquisition, it's helped us a ton, and it just proved that not everyone's built for the pinstripes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not worried about them. And the same thing, Rob mentioned that they got the Red Sox coming up. Yeah, they've been terrible against the AL East this year. Terrible. I don't think they have the tiebreaker or even have a chance for the tiebreaker over the Red Sox. I'm not sure, but I'm not confident that they do because of their record against the AL East. It's been horrific. It's been what the Jays has been in the past, and it's what's cost us to miss playoff games or miss playoffs or not have the tiebreaker or whatever. So
Whose divisions?
here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing. Both the Red Sox and the Yankees are in all likelihood going to have to play a wild card series, maybe even against each other. The Jays, in all likelihood, as long as this weekend goes well, or even just not horrible, the Jays, in all likelihood, will be positioning themselves for a bye in the American League. That's what's the great thing about finishing top 2 in the American League is that if you can just automatically put yourself into a 5-game set where you don't have the Seattle thing happen, where you get shoved by an ace in game 1, and then you blow, you shit down your leg in game 2, and then boom, your season's over because you lost the best 2 out of 3. You finally get, some actual leeway where you can go on the road and play at home and have 3 of your best pitchers go. Like, that is what it's a massive benefit in baseball. It always has been a massive benefit, and that is why winning this division and finishing top 2 is so important.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, too. Like, we talked about the Blue Jays playing a really mediocre brand of baseball lately and how you want that to change, and absolutely you do. And now the other teams haven't really taken advantage of that little slippage by the Blue Jays. At the same time, though, 3.5 game lead is not a whole lot, right? If you keep playing mediocre 500 ball, all you really need is one of these two teams to just go on a massive run in the last 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, not only are you not the 1 seed or a bye, now all of a sudden you are a wild card team, and who knows, maybe even a road wild card team, which obviously you don't feel great about. So that's the thing about the Blue Jays is that they're in a great position, and they should feel proud of how they've played this season, the position that they are in heading into this series. But you got to put together a nice stretch here to end the season because all this stuff, all the good that we've had this year could be offset pretty quickly if you don't close a deal, which here's the thing about the Blue Jays. They have proven every step of the way that they are better than the team we thought they were. They've proven every step of the way that they are built for these big games against the Yankees specifically, but big games in general. They have a good record against every American League playoff team except for the Astros, who that was early in the year. We'll see how that goes later next week when the Astros come to town, but you have a lot of reason to feel confident if you're a Blue Jays fan. And yeah, let's hope for a good series. This is what we played for. This is what we watched games all season long for, to have these massive series. And like you mentioned, Prof, it's not like a make or break playoff series where, God forbid, everything or not a whole lot goes right, you're doomed. You put yourself in a good position where you can afford to not have a perfect series. The Yankees lose tonight and you win 1 out of 3, you're still in a fine position. However, 2 out of 3, that puts you in a great position moving forward. So that's the hope. That's the goal. Let's hope they can get it done.
This is perfect. I'm going to finish it off right here. The Jays play the Yankees and then the Astros in the next 2 series. In September, both playoff-esque series. This is a litmus test for what Rob has mentioned, a team that has been playing 500 ball for basically 2 months in the Toronto Blue Jays. This is your litmus test.
6 weeks, yes.
But because of the position they put themselves in, the standards and the expectations for this team have changed. You are a first-place team. You are a top 2 seed in the American League, and that is what you have to control the rest of the way. The standards have changed. The team that we thought was going to finish 4th in the AL East or 3rd in the AL East, that's gone. You are now expected to finish top 2 in the American League, and it starts with playing good and turning your season around and turning this second half around against the New York Yankees in New York this weekend. For Rob Pentalman, I was Cole Whiston. You were watching the Blue Jays Center podcast presented by the Sick Podcast Network. Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.